Hey guys. Okay, so we're in the last installment. If you haven't seen the first part talks about the bottom tier teams. The second part talks about the middle tier teams. Now we're on the best part, the top tier teams. And this tier is going to be really exciting to talk about. So just to kind of preface again that basically this is more of a tier system and what you should expect of these teams, and can vary, and I think that's the cool team about these top teams is that the expectations are high. There's nowhere to go but down here. We talked about those middle teams that could maybe move up. If middle teams move up, that means that these top teams have to move down, right? So people expect a lot from these teams, and I think going into this season with tournaments, we're gonna want to see these teams a lot. We're gonna expect these teams a lot in these tournaments, especially later in the tournament. And maybe these guys can win a tournament. These teams can win tournaments. These are the ones that you'd expect to win tournaments if the meta goes their favor or whatever it may be, right? So I think this is the most exciting tier to talk about. Personally, it's my most exciting tier from my perspective to talk about. So I think if you're more interested in the other ones, I'll link part one and part two with the bottom and the middle tier teams, because I think those are teams that are really great too, that can rise up. But these teams are the ones that you expect greatness from. You expect a deeper playoff run, whatever it may be. You expect them to maybe come away with a tournament win. So these teams are going to be exciting to talk about. So I think we're going to start with a fan favorite. Again, the particular order doesn't matter. In fact, I'm going to talk about Gladiators last because, got to save the best for last. You know what I mean? But let's talk about the Dallas Fuel roster. So these guys, they have made the most interesting changes because they have essentially completely wiped their identity as a team and just shifted it to full Korean. I think I want to talk about the expectations of this team because it's actually kind of weird. Fuel has been, for lack of a better word, I think this probably is the best word, is mismanaged, right? Like, that is the first word that comes up. Like, players are openly unhappy. Like, there's like conflict that always is breeding in, like, it's breeding in front of everyone, right? Like, you are airing your dirty laundry, noting back to season one, Rascal, Decay not playing this year. There's always been something going wrong, and like their aggregate, they've always been bottom tier. Like, let's be honest, they have never gone above 500 as far as I'm concerned. At the end of the season, at points maybe there were that they did over a streak, but this team has really, really struggled despite being a fan favorite in its past iterations. We're talking about the MB iteration. We're talking about the Reborn with Arrow. We're talking about Decay. Like, no matter what, this team has looked kind of bad all the time, despite having talent run through it. It's not just like they've been not getting the results people want. They've been strictly bad. And it's really funny to me because now this team has essentially exported their management. We talked about mismanagement. We talked about like these problems that they've been having are just like, man, they're having a lot of problems. And Hastro, or whoever made the decision, Hastro, whatever it may be, handed over the keys to just a full Korean team, and we're like, take it, it's yours. Let's fucking go. Let's go win a championship. And I think that's kind of sick in one regard. It's kind of lame in another regard, but that's how good these Korean teams are. And not only do you just get a Korean team, you got Element Mystic. You got the generational team of Element Mystic. You know when you can play, you could play the Chicago Bulls in NBA 2K, or you could play the like all-star team of the Chicago Bulls where you get like Michael Jordan back on your team. And then it's like sick. You get that level of fidelity in your team when you get the like all-time team of Element Mystic. You got the best parts of Element Mystic, and you got the coaching staff as well. So literally this is just like some really, really interesting happenstance into, oh wow, Element Mystic is just now in the league. And for those who don't follow Korean Contenders, Element Mystic's always been a top tier team in Korean Contenders, and they've always been good through every iteration. They've always been good, and I think they really do have their best parts. So their expectations are a little weird because you'd expect very little of Dallas coming into this season, but since they made so many sweeping changes, they've axed their western part of their roster, right? I think the expectations are really high. They have to succeed this year because they have essentially, like, they're like, fuck everything else. We're just going for a championship. We're going for the most competitive team possible. Like, we like axe out the past 3 years. And I don't know, like, Dallas fans are very, very loyal. I know this because my dad's a Dallas Cowboys fan. I grew up consequently as a Dallas Cowboys fan. I know how diehard people are about Dallas, but they also, Dallas fans are great because they're brutally honest about their team. And if they start not liking their team, I don't really know about the Dallas Cowboys, but I know Dallas Fuel fans, like, this might be a huge identity shift from what you're used to from the big names, right? Like from XQC, Siegel, Taimu, whatever it was, to now. I mean, these are huge names in my opinion, but maybe not so much on the Western side. It is harder to relate from like a marketing side to the Korean players. I have to believe from the marketing side that has to be true. So, that being said, I think they have great personalities on this team, and I love their players. So let's talk about that. We talked about the expectations. They're a little bit weird, and I think they have to succeed this year. Success is not necessarily like winning it all, but like doing pretty freaking well is what they need to do, I think. And I hope they don't like axe. Dallas has been axing every year. I hope they kind of stabilize this going into future years, but I don't really know. Okay, let's talk about the roster, because basically they only kept Doha, who was definitely the shining star of this team, besides Decay. Decay turned free agent, went to Washington. And there was that whole weird thing that he got released midseason, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to talk about that. But they kept Doha. They dropped literally everyone else. People that they said that they liked, promised, whatever. And then bad contracts that, weren't going about. Trill, AKM, these Unco, these guys were like not really into the game and not really playing the game. So, they kept Doha, who was a shining star on this team, but this is Element Mystic. This is the 2019 Gauntlet Element Mystic with Doha, Sparkle, Hanbin. I guess those guys were the core of that team. So, yeah, this is really interesting. Doha, really good projectile DPS. You saw that he had really great pop-off moments. Their DPS line is really interesting because I think they're all really high-quality players here. Super high quality. If their meta hits, they have like a top-tier DPS in that category for sure. So Doha, you'd probably know him for his Genji, his Sombra. I thought his Pharah was quite good. Sparkle is a man with no introduction. This guy plays everything under the sun, I'm pretty sure. He's not so much into the hit scan, but he plays literally everything else. His Zarya is spectacular. If you watched him in GOATS, he was the best Zarya in Korean contenders, I believe. Really great here. And then you have XZ, who's more of like this hard head clicker type of guy. He's exceptional. Like, his Kree is exceptional. His Widow showed massive improvements, and it looks really, really good. His Hanzo, really, really good. I'm sure his Soldier is good, although we don't really see Soldier too much. So he's really much more of these like hard hit scans. We haven't seen him as good on the Tracer or whatever it may be. In fact, if you saw the NEXT tournament, he didn't look too hot on the Tracer, is what I'll say. And he always kind of like went back to that comfort pick of Kree. They were running Lucio, Moira, Winston, Diva, and then they were just randomly running Kree in that comp, which you normally don't expect, but XZ makes it work because he's exceptional at that hero. So the obvious hole is, normally you actually only have one flex DPS. You only have this one projectile DPS, and then you have some flanker player, and then you have some hit scan player. Dallas doesn't really have that Tracer player, and I know this is like probably well known that they don't have that Tracer player, but Rush said he believes that they can pick one of the three DPS can pick it up. I'm not sure who they're planning, but one of the three can. So that's the one hole they have, but Tracer is very important. Very, very important. I don't know why I'm whispering like it's a secret. It's not a secret that Tracer has been really important in OWL for a long time. So this is like not just a hole, but it's kind of a big hole that is very, very important. And you kind of need that Tracer one-trick type of thing. You can't just have someone who's like a flex Tracer, because they'll get run over by Prophet, by Striker. Like those guys are just Tracer players who have 4 years of experience on Tracer. You need a really great Tracer. So that is a big hole that they have. Speaking of holes, like we got to go to the next one. Fearless and Hanbin. Again, like, I just want to say all these players are super high quality. Like, this alone, like, you could imagine any meta, these guys are going to be really good. Hanbin, I think this guy isn't talked about enough. This guy, I think, is really, really good and also really underrated at the same time. I think this guy deserves a lot of credit for Paris's success. He was great on every single hero. Arguably, his Diva looked the weakest, but I think he looks still good on the Diva. His Sigma was great last year. His Zarya, when he played it, was great last year. This guy is really good, really flexible, too. So, Hanbin, like, even his Orisa, I think, is good, too. So, this guy is really good, really flexible. Fearless has a little bit less flexibility, you're going to say. I think Fearless is probably the best monkey in the league. Maybe Smurf's probably in that category, just from history, but Fearless, you think Fearless, you think Winston. That is, like, for sure. Shanghai made it work with Winston when we were in a hard double shield meta. Fearless was playing Monkey. Like, that's how good this guy is at Monkey. He knows the ins and outs of this hero. It really, really shows. In fact, again, pointing again to the NEXT tournament, once they started playing Winston, they looked a lot better. So, I mean, Fearless, you got to be looking towards that guy's strengths, I think, because his weaknesses are very clear. His Orisa's not too hot, I think, is kind of clear. And his ball is looking questionable. I think it can be improved because it's a relatively new hero, but it didn't look superb in NEXT, but it could look serviceable. With Fearless, his Rhine I think is really good too. For a Korean Rhine, I think he's pretty good. So you have to kind of ride the highs with this squad, and Fearless is one of those highs where if they get a Winston meta, it's looking great. Again, there are some huge holes here with Orisa and possibly Ball. So Dallas is a team where they'll have really high highs. I have confidence that their high highs, they are championship qualities, but in their lows, in these meta misses, they might not be able to be like that championship contender that you'd want it to be. But, man, if they hit the right meta, these guys are really, really scary. Okay, now we got to talk about their supports. Their supports, interestingly enough, they grab Fielder from Paris. Boom, they're adding their boys in. Jexay and Repel, too, get added. Old EM duo. Jexay is really rated high by the community, as is Repel. These guys come from Houston Outlaws. They didn't look super great on Outlaws, but let's be honest, Outlaws did not look very good last year. So on a better team, we got to see how do these guys look. And Fielder too. Fielder was someone who was brought in under 200 ping. We got to see like who is going to be the starting flex support of this roster. I'm not really sure, to be honest. Like, I haven't looked too deeply in depth, and that's our coach's job to do, is figure it out. But the good news is if it's close, the competition's great for the players, and maybe one has one specialty over the other. So I like the flexibility they have in their support line. They can play in double flex support metas as well and be very comfortable. So their backline is very flexible, but you wouldn't say is the highest quality, right? It's not like this standout support line that alone you are saying is super great. I think I can say alone their DPS are super great. Alone their tanks are really great. Alone their supports are decent. They're good. They're still good. But we're talking about the top tier, right? You need to be more than good. You need to be great. And that's kind of a clear thing with them, is that they might not have this. Again, in certain metas, I actually think it's weird to say Fielder's Moira is really, really good. And this is a strength that they had, in my opinion, was Fielder's Moira. I thought Fielder's Moira was really good. Jexay's Lucio looks good to me. I haven't looked too deeply in depth, but, this team will have high highs for sure. So they do have holes, and you do have to be concerned if you're a Dallas fan, and they're probably aware of it as well. But EM's always been a really creative team that makes their shit work. They make their comp work. And I think that's something really excited. I'm highlighting Sparkle right now because he's part of that, like, we can make it work with Sparkle. Like, they'll play Genji when Genji's not meta. They'll play Pharah when Pharah's not meta. They'll put him on Zarya maybe. They will find creative ways to make it work, I think. That being said, when the meta is really strong, there's only so many things you can do. I think this team will be really good once they get going. I could see it going not very well, as well. Like, this is the team that I see has a lot more risk, but they're just a high, lows team, I think. Just a high risk, high reward team. I can see this team doing insanely well, and they're definitely a team to watch out if the meta hits for them. Okay, man, talked a lot about Fuel. and their return. Let's talk about Justice. Another team, a proverbial loser. Um, that sounds so mean. But they have been like just looking at their regular season. I don't even want to like aggregate it, but it's not great. They haven't been great. They were 19th in season 2020, and then they were 17th in 2019. So they're not doing too hot overall. But boom, the classic El Clasico story. You hand over the team to a Korean coach, a Korean roster. It's full Korean. Just hand over the wheels. Honestly, just hand over the wheels. You'll get a successful team. I think that's what this team did. Again, I think this is a great strategy. It's kind of a lame strategy if you're talking about team building. It's like, yeah, we just go full Korean pick. Yeah, but it's a good strategy. We see that with Titans. It's a good strategy. We see that with Dallas, with Justice. Like, you just do these things, and it's great. Shanghai is another great example as well. Okay, this team, we got to talk about what they hit in the offseason and then what they kept in the offseason. I think you are the most excited that you kept DK. DK was the guy you needed to fucking keep. There is no other guy you needed to keep. You needed to keep DK. And they kept DK. That was the main hit that they got. Everyone else is new, besides Tuba as well. I'll get to Tuba in a bit and why I actually think this might have been, not a mistake, but just like one of the lower hits that they could have gotten. But they got Decay, and then they surrounded him with a brand new team. The biggest additions that they got, Mag Fury. Mag is a legend in Korean contenders. This guy is just a proven winner. Where main tanks don't necessarily stand out, Mag stands out, and this guy is crazy good. You just see his Liquipedia. It's just all golds over here. This guy does not lose, and if he does lose, he's like second, and he's unhappy about it, I'm sure. This guy is a proven winner. Speaking of proven winners, Fury comes over here. Man, Fury is so good. I think everyone already knows how good he is. World champion already. Really proven talent for sure. We got to talk about his flexibility. I don't think his Sigma's exceptional, but it's good, as you'd expect from Fury. And his Diva is exceptional. It is one of the best in the league, if not the best. He's known for it, and he's like a legendary Diva player. Fury is great on this hero. His Zarya is very good as well. Their tank line, what can't they do is the question. They can do everything, and they will do everything. They are a big hit for this team. We talk about them with Decay. You tell me a team has just these three guys, Mag, Decay, Fury, I'm putting them in the top 4 probably every time. And that's kind of what's happening here. We got to talk about, and I don't want to be mean, but the rest. I think Rhea is essentially irrelevant. Like, again, no offense to him, but like Fury has got to be playing most of the time. There might be some double off-tank meta, and then Rhea is important. So that could come into hand. But for the most part, you generally will see that it's going to be Fury Mag. I got to believe. Let's talk about the DPS that they surrounded Decay with, because this is really important as well. All the top tier teams have like 2 great DPS players. On Dallas, they had 3, right? We can talk about the other ones later, but you need great players all around, but DPS is really important as well. They went out and got Jerry, who was a shining star on Boston. Jerry's story, like, I don't know it deeply, but he was an off-tank player, turned into a hit-scan player, and his trajectory looks great. His trajectory looks really, really great. So, he looks more like that hard hit-scan player, less so that tracer flanker player. But the fact that he's learning so quickly, I think hit-scan is technically the easiest skill to pick up on, but it's the hardest skill as well to pick up on in terms of that it's so mechanically deep, that the fact that he did really well in this, he's a grinder, right? Like that is very clear. So Jerry, you have to be optimistic for. Tuba as well showed really bright spots throughout the season. When he was on a hero, he was really proficient at. Hanzo, Sombra, when he was on, the more projectile heroes like Pharah and stuff like that. Those, and obviously Genji, Tuba Genji is his signature hero. So these guys have really bright spots, I think, Jerry and Tuba. But if we're talking about the top tier, I want higher fidelity in the DPS picks, whereas these guys can pop off at sometimes, but I'm not sure that they're that certain star quality. There definitely aren't that certain star quality that Decay brings. And I think this was one of the bigger misses of the Justice this season. They hit a lot of great talent. They hit a lot of great talent. But here I felt like there are a lot of great DPSs running around, and I felt like they kind of played the DPSs relatively safe. Jerry, you could say, is like more an experimental pick, or not experimental, kind of more like a growth pick that you see like he's trending upwards. I can see that pick. I feel like Tuba, if had you gotten Rascal, Pelican, I mean, the coaches are O2 coaches, right, Chilihua? Yeah, I mean, I feel like they could have gone more in on talent. I don't know what their budget situation was, but had they had these, I would say that they'd be maybe a favorite in this region had they hit these, right? I think, again, we're going to talk about the supports now. Bebe and Closer. I think these guys are a bit underrated. I think people think they will be mediocre. Maybe people just have a different definition of mediocre, but I think they'll be good. Bebe was on Spark for a long time, a long-standing, upper tier team in the APAC region, and in Season 2, an upper tier team as well. Bebe is really flexible. He kind of plays everything. And he plays him, I don't think he has like a standout hero, but it's probably his end. But he's really flexible, really smart player. And I think he's going to be really like stable too for the team. So we're going to see like maybe it was like a team diff for him or stuff like that. I don't really think he's that S tier support, but I do think he could be that A tier support, which is, good depending on, how they spent their budget or whatever. Closer is really interesting as well. He's a world champ from London, although he didn't play in that playoff run. He's a really high-quality player. He came from GC Busan, which was a long time ago. It was a great Lucio for 2016. I think this guy's still got it. That's my opinion. I have a high opinion of Closer. I'm happy to be proven wrong. I kind of hope this team sucks, to be honest, for my sake. But I have a high belief in Closer that he's really mechanically quite good, really smart about the game. And that when he's motivated, he will grind. On Dallas, again, we talk about just going back to the Dallas thing, maybe some mismanagement there, right? But Closer, I feel like, it's hard to stand out on main support. He could have not been on great teams given that he was on Dallas, right? He looked good on London, and then that was a big acquisition for Dallas in the offseason of 2018, right? And that was a huge acquisition, but he was never really able to shine on Dallas, but Dallas also never had something cohesive going on. So I'm really excited for this redemption arc of Closer personally, and I think he could break into, that top tier of main supports. I'm not really sure myself, but we'll see. We'll see. So rounding out this roster, I think again your big three. It's your big three that you're high about is Mag, Fury, and Decay. If tanks aren't the strong carries that they have been in the past, maybe some metas they'll be less useful, right? It's going to be a harder ask for, say, your support line, say for your other DPS that isn't Decay to be that tip-top tier. So I have a little bit of concerns, but I also think that the three are so exceptional. I think that they're so exceptional between Mag, Fury, and Decay that will be the shining light of this team. And yeah, I could see a world where maybe they don't do so well. I really do see a world where maybe they don't do so well, but in most worlds I see them just having the raw talent that the middle tier teams don't have. But, that remains to be seen. This is a brand new team. I think the expectations on it are a little unfair, but I think they are fair in the fact that they have Decay, Mag, and Fury. Man, okay, I'm making these long-winded because these are teams I love to talk about. I think we got to talk about the champs. We got to talk about the champs, right? Overwatch. I don't know why I did that roster. Oh, let me take a swig of water here. I need a second win. Okay, so we're on to the championship. San Francisco Shock. We have to talk about, again, what did they lose? We have to talk again about what did they lose, what did they keep? And, wow, they organized it so nicely. These are the guys they kept. From Twilight up, Teo up, these are the guys they kept. And then from FT God down, those are the guys that they acquired. they had lost Moth. Gladiators have Moth. And Ons has retired. So those were two big parts of their team, especially going into the Ashe Mercy meta, right, in the playoffs. Immediately huge effect. Moth's one of the best Mercies in the league. Ons is one of the best hit scans in the league. That's a huge blow, right? So for their meta specifics, but they keep a lot. This team had so much talent that like you lose two, you still look good. That's kind of crazy how good your talent level is. Super Smurf, Tail as old as time. These guys are a perfect tank pairing in a way that they can always play each other's heroes, and you have the best tank in the world at that position at pretty much in any meta. So that's great for them that they have, that tank line again. Choi is super flexible. I don't want to say he's underrated because he's a two-time champ. I don't think anyone's underrating this guy anymore. Super flexible. Choi's really good player. Doesn't stop to grind. Really great teammate. We all know about the Shock. These guys are great. Violet and Striker, I think, are some of their harder carries in the metas that they most recently were in, which was Zen Tracer. These guys, my God. You talk about a stack shot lineup with, you lost the Ons hit scan and you lost the Moth Mercy. Violet and Striker are the tip-top of their role, for sure. Striker's only competitor is probably Prophet, and then Violet might stand alone at that point, that he might be the standout flex support for Zen specifically. And my gosh, this team already with those five looked extremely stacked. Twilight, you add to this list Twilight. Oh my God. They have so much talent on this team, right? Twilight ensures that their support line is always going to be good in any double flex support meta. Twilight's been increasing his flexibility. I'm excited to see whenever Twilight and Violet play because those are two legendary flex supports playing together. That's sick. Teo, we didn't get to see much of, and I'm not sure if we'll see much of him this season as well, but we got to be asking, who's our Ons replacement? Who's that hard hit scan player? I don't really know if it's going to be Teo. The one that you have to be looking towards is Glister, and I rate Glister really, really highly. Personally, I think this was one of the best free agent pickups going into this season. I guess maybe not free agent. I'm not sure what the situation was with London, but this has got to be one of the more interesting pickups this season. I rated Glister really highly. The fact Shock picks him up maybe corroborates my idea that Glister is this guy waiting to be molded. I think he's got the mechanics. He looks to me almost like a young Birdring, super flexible, but leans towards that hard hit scan side. Glister, I think, is really good. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. Will he be Ons? That's hard to match up to, but I think Glister will look really, really good. His flexibility is somewhat of a question, but you have that covered because, boom, Shock always loves stacking DPS. They have 4 DPS. Nero is the Rascal replacement, and I say replacement more forgivingly, just like he fills the same role as Rascal. There's no replacing what Rascal did on this team, I'm sure, but Nero is probably as mechanically, if not better than Rascal on the heroes that they play. And I think that Nero is, again, one of those more unshaped guys, but can be really, really good. I think he already is. I don't think he's unshaped. That's probably not the wrong word. I don't think Glister's unshaped either, but they're going to need a good team to surround them, and they're going to need to know exactly. There's going to be some make it or break it moments, but their mechanics are not in question, I guess. Like pure aim or whatever hero proficiency, you're not really too worried about them. It's more the surrounding elements. So Rascal is going to be that replacement for, Nero is going to be that replacement for Rascal. I think this is a great pickup as well. I know Krusty loves Western DPS. He wants like a Sinatra replacement almost. I see this guy and I think he's craving Sinatra. Teo was that Sinatra feeling in terms of how much he calls. I don't know if Krusty's ever going to get Sinatra again, like the same type of player, but I know he's craving that. He wants a vocal DPS. He got a vocal DPS in Teo. I'm sure he's going to try to make Nero as vocal as possible as well. So I like this pickup for the Rascal replacement as well, and I think this is a possible upgrade, whereas I don't know if you can ever really upgrade Ons in terms of just raw hit scan, like he was the best at his role, but Nero might be a slight upgrade just in terms of hero proficiency, not overall what he brings to the game. Rascal, legendary player again. FD God, I'm high on this pickup. I think this is a great pickup for Shock. They're getting mechanical talent. They're getting Western talent. Boom, FD God fits in right in there. He's probably the mechanically best Lucio in the league. I think I can say that with certainty. I think he's even more mechanically sound than Funny Astro. But I think Funny Astro is a better player than FD God. That's like a separate aside. But like FD God's got a lot of potential. It looked really good on Paris. His Mercy is a bit of a question mark, but his Lucio is seriously freaking good. So I'm high on this pickup, but they have to kind of surround it, and they have to accept weaknesses that FD God will have that they will need to patch up either with Twilight or patch up with themselves. So I think this roster is really big and still bulletproof, honestly. They don't like have a particularly bad meta that they're in. They might not have like an insane meta like they did. The playoff meta was like damn near perfect for them, right? Striker on his best character, On's on his best character, Moth on his best character, Violet on his best character, Choi on. Yeah, I mean their tanks are great no matter what. Like I don't know if you're gonna ever see as high of highs with Shock, but you will see like they've been dominant. It's not like they lucked into these metas at the end. They've been dominant for a great reason, which is Krusty is great. They lost Junkbuck, and I think that was a big, Junkbuck has been with Shock since season 1. I think he's been a big part of their success. The question, is did Shock lose too many pieces? I think that's got to be the storyline is, did they lose too many pieces? I see this roster. I still think it's great. I think it's a championship winning roster, a possible championship winning roster. I don't know if it's as good as the years prior, especially with competition going up, but it's really still quite good. You tell me this roster from this part and above, and I already feel great about it. You also tell me that Krusty is coaching. I feel great about it. Kasora's Agape, Agape won season 1 with London, and Kasoris is kind of this more fresh Western talent, was on the Atlanta Reign. But they're no Junkbuck, they're no 9K, and that's fine, because Krusty has... This is a question of how good is Shock? Like, how good is Krusty? How good is Shock? How good is their budget? How good is Andy Miller? This is just a legacy year for them, right? If they get 3 in a row, there is no question. We talk about Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the GOAT of all GOATs in our lifetime, right? That is easy to say. I've been alive as long as Tom Brady's been good, and that guy isn't stopping either. Like, that guy is insane. This is the dynasty. This is who is the best coach in over. This cements it, right? If other people start getting 2, you start maybe questioning. If they win 3 in a row, there is no doubt in my mind this is the best team in Overwatch history for years to come. Like, for years to come. Like, there's no way you built that strong of a legacy. It could be possible, that teams Profit wins his second, you start getting these questions. This will be not even freaking close if this team wins next year. And I think that's the pressure that they have as well. This team doesn't accept anything less than first. And you got a bunch of new guys here. You got a bunch of new guys here who, can they stand up to that pressure? I think they can. I think they can, and if all indications of the last 2 seasons, they very well will, I wouldn't bet against the Shock. If I were a betting man, I would not bet against the Shock. These guys have it all still. I think they filled their holes nicely. Even though they lost very key people on their team, I think they filled their holes, and I don't know if they'll miss a step. These guys are very, very good still. And the crazy thing for Shock, anything less than domination is just people will say that this team is not as good. And I think this year will be more competitive than ever. I felt like I said that last year, and they kind of rolled through still. So, man, this team's got high expectations, but deservedly so. Okay, whew. My throat's kind of scratching at this point, but we're going to truck on through to the Los Angeles Gladiators. And again, this is in no particular order. It's not that I think, we're better than Chuck because we go later, but we do save the best for last because it is my team. And I was thinking about how to talk about this team because, do I give a objective view or what? I'm the coach of this team. I've been on this team for the past 3 years, so I think I want to give you guys a little bit more insight. If you guys want that kind of more objective view, I think Platchat put out an episode, and I think that's, probably that's going to be a more objective view than I can give. That's for sure true. So I want to talk about this team, and I want to talk about this team as candidly as I can, without giving too much. So, okay, we look at this team. I'll talk about the roster really quick and what we kept, what we didn't, but I want to talk about like bigger concerns, because if you want an objective view of this team and talk about the offseason stuff, I think you got to watch Platchat. You got to get someone else's opinion. I think these pickups are great. I'm really high on these pickups. I won't say like, oh yeah, like these are this is questionable, whatever, but like I'm just gonna talk about this team. So we kept Space, Birdring, Mira, Kevster, and then we acquired this Muse, Shoe, Moth, and Skewed. So I want to talk about, like, I'm all about accountability, and I'm all about talking about the elephant in the room too, which is this guy. It's me. People don't have much faith in me, and I want to talk about that because I think it's like completely legitimate. Objectively speaking, it's not probably, it is very fair. This coach hasn't given you much playoff wins in the past. They've always been A tier, but never S tier. This team has never really been in the championship level tier. And you got to believe, is this coaching, right? Like, I don't really want to defend myself. I just kind of want to speak to that. I think that's a fair thing. In traditional sports as well, I think coaches, more than anything, the only thing you can really judge a coach on is results. And yeah, I mean, look at every sport. Look at any sport. Coaches, the head coach will get fired. They have the ultimate accountability. And I take ultimate accountability for each and every year that I've been in the league. Every single year, I see that it has been my fault in one way or another. And, like, it's mainly my fault that we didn't succeed. I believe in accountability. I believe that, someone needs to be held accountable. And I believe that I think I'm an accountable person as well. So if you haven't been happy with the results as of recently, I think that's fair. But there is one thing, and this isn't me, I guess this is me kind of defending myself, is that coaches are only based on their results. And I think that's fair. Bruce Arians comes to example. For those who don't know, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. This was the most losingest team of the last 20 years across 4 major sports in the U.S., and they get Tom Brady and a bunch of get a bunch of talent. I don't want to just say Tom Brady. I don't know enough about football as well to know who they acquired specifically this last season for this championship run, but they acquire a bunch of talent, and then they have Bruce Arians as their coach, who is considered I believe he was considered a relatively mediocre coach, mediocre to bad, within that range of coach in football, and now I'm pretty sure he goes down as a legend. He's one of the few who have won a Super Bowl, and that says something, And I don't know if he'll go down as a great coach if they win next year or whatever, if he has more accolades down his line, but he is a Super Bowl winning coach. He's a championship winning coach. His stock went from nothing to there really, really fast, and I believe talent. I guess I believe talent is really important. You can be a great coach, but great coaches can pull bottom teams up to middle. Great coaches can bring top teams up to tip top. And that's what I need to do this year to prove myself, right? Like, if people are saying that I'm the weakest part of the roster, and I don't want to seem narcissistic about this either, like that I want to talk about myself, but this is like objectively one of the bigger holes of these teams, because you see this roster is great. The question is, are they under the right people? Can this team succeed, right? Because coaching will make a bigger diff at the top end. That's why Krusty is a legendary coach, right? So I will take full accountability like I have been the last few seasons. If you're not happy, I'm just going to say wait and see. I can tell you for myself, like for me personally, I struggle a lot. This past season, again, really candidly, I was pretty depressed after this past season. It was my worst season of all the seasons in OWL, and it wasn't like for most other coaches, for like, the other half of coaches, this would be considered a good season. It was 11-10. It was by far the worst season that I've had. And our playoff run was pretty atrocious as well. Like, yeah, I mean, I was really depressed after. And, I mean, for myself, I had to question, like, did I did I want to coach next year? And it's not that I didn't love coaching. I love coaching. It's that I love winning so much and that I hate losing so much. I cannot stand losing. I'm probably the biggest sore loser amongst any people that you know. I just will hide it a little bit better. But I can't handle losing. And I can't handle the like it. It's a lot of pain each season. I don't really know how to describe it, but any player, any coach will tell you it's a lot of pain to go through each season and not reach your expectation, not reach what you think you and your team is capable of. And, basically every year, it's probably an unrealistic expectation, but every year I'm gunning for first. Like, there is nothing else I am gunning for. I don't give a shit about second. I don't give a shit about third. I don't give a shit about these mini tournaments in between. I'm going for first. Like, it's first or bust. Like, mentally, like, obviously I think you need to build there, but, that's besides the point. For me, mentally, like, I believe in myself. I believe that we can win. And if I don't, then why am I coaching? I won't coach for fun. I'm not going to coach, a bottom tier team for fun. Like that's not my thing. I'm not here to collect a paycheck. I've joined coaching because I want to win. I want to be the best in the world. That is my only intent. And yeah, I had to go through this process. I was depressed in the offseason about this. And I had to go through this process of whether or not, I thought I could be the best. And I'm telling you guys, for fans of the Los Angeles Gladiators, and maybe people, just whoever, I would not be coaching unless I thought I could be the best or that my team could be the best. And I guess, I'm really critical. I'm not someone, I don't think I'm like egotistical or whatever. I have as much of an ego as anyone else, but I'm most critical of myself. I'm critical of other people, certainly, but I'm most critical of myself, and I think that I can be the best. And maybe it's just some hubris of what I believe. Maybe it's some narcissism, whatever, but I believe I can be the best coach in Overwatch League. I believe that we as a team, we can be the best team in Overwatch League this year. Otherwise, I can tell you I would not be coaching going into this year. So say what you will. That is truly and honestly how I felt, and truly and honestly the mental hurdles I had to get over going into this offseason of whether or not I would be in this season. And I'm all about winning. So objectively, you can say whatever you want, and I can't really say anything against it. I really can't. But that's just, for me, what I'm saying for myself as a coach. I think I want to talk about Face and Ty Dollar because I think these guys will be integral as well. Like, a head coach is only as good as their coaching staff, and I believe this truly and honestly. Face is someone who I think has incredible talent in scouting, and he's helped construct this roster going into this year. And Ty is the first Korean coach I'm going to be working with directly, and I have high belief in Ty Dollar that, like, we all kind of share a similar philosophy as coaches. We're not hands-off, I would say, but we do believe that the players need to believe in their instincts. We need to, like, teach them general concepts, and they need to apply it. We do believe in these things, and, like, I think, like, we philosophically as a coaching staff, we're going to disagree. Disagreement's really important, but that we're aligned on more fundamental things. So I'm really happy about this coaching staff. Ty Dollar's a winner. He's a former player, from, I think, LW Red, and also a winner from Summer Showdown. He's been great on Guangzhou Charge. I think he's going to do well under this system and just with this team. I think he's going to do really, really well. And then Face, I think, obviously, I think he was doing a good job. Otherwise, I wouldn't rehire him, obviously. So I'm really happy with our coaching staff. And I think this is really important. Let's talk about the players. I didn't mean to go into, a narcissistic rant, but I did want to talk about the elephant in the room that, people should talk about is, hey, what about T-Pay's coaching? But let's talk about the roster because this is the more exciting part of the roster. Let's talk about the pieces we kept. We kept Space, and then we kept our 3 DPS. Let's talk about our 3 DPS first because I think that's easiest to talk about in a trio. People talk about Birdring and Kevster, and they were our predominant players, our starting DPS. I think people will underrate Mirror, but we can get to them later. Birdring and Kevster are kind of this perfect duo, I think. Kevster's more clearly a great tracer player, and then he leans towards hit scan after that. But he's super flexible. We saw him play Genji. Genji was actually one of his worst heroes coming into Overwatch League. He was great. He was great on Genji, truly and honestly. So he can pick up heroes if he likes them. If he doesn't like them, he might not pick them up, and I have to force him to, but that's a whole other story. Birdring. I think this term was brought up multiple times throughout the season. He's a living legend. Like, quote unquote, that's what players, coaches called him. Is a living legend, and I think that's a really accurate description. He's a legend in terms of his pedigree, his history, his experience, and he's living. Two very accurate qualifiers for him. Birdering's also a great mix with our roster because he's more that hard hit scan players that can flex. His flexibility is really great. We saw his Junkrat last season, really great. We saw his Tracer throughout the season, also was standout. He played Doom in the playoffs, also great. This guy plays everything. He leans more towards that hard hit scan, but between him, Kevster, and lastly, Mirror, these guys are cover everything under DPS. There are some small holes that I'm a bit concerned about, but that we're going to need to work on as a team. There's small holes, but it's not like Dallas Fuel DPS level of holes, I think. Also about Birdring, in this tournament format, he's always been a great match performer, and these matches will mean a lot. He's always been great under pressure. I think he's going to excel this season. If he's going to excel this season if he really chooses to excel. It's going to be up to him. It's always up to him, in my opinion. Birdring is not one to blame his team, blame his coaches, blame anything other than himself. And I know he knows it's on him to do really well this season if he wants to win. And that's going to be a big thing going into this season. We'll be good if Birdring is good for sure. People don't talk about Mirror. People don't talk about Chris nearly as much as they should, I think. Maybe for good reason. It's just that the past metas have been Tracer hit scan, and that lends itself to Kevster Birdring, and that projectile has been not used a lot. But Chris has, like, exceptional heroes. We talk about exceptional heroes on Dallas, right? Like, Doha and Sparkle can be exceptional on their heroes, though their hero pools are a little weird. Mirror is kind of that same. I think he's, like, that same type of player. Maybe not. Just Sparkle's maybe like legendary, and Chris hasn't earned that yet, but I believe he has the talent and the ability to do that as well. So to me, we have that natural fit where Birdring and Kevster can flex if the meta calls for flexibility, but they need to play these other things. Chris is more that like player who's going to be exceptional on these heroes. I'm talking about Doomfist, I'm talking about Pharah, I'm talking about Junkrat, I'm talking about even Hog and Zarya. I think he's really exceptional. His Zarya, for those who don't know, is great from GOATS. We've played it throughout the season. Chris, I think, will be our guy that opens up our strategy past meta, or if the meta gets, different than what we've been seeing, which is Tracer hit scan, he's going to be great. He also has a great Echo, which Echo looks to be like a mainstay flex pick. So that's great as well. So our DPS line covers almost everything. I won't talk about our holes, but we do have holes that I'm a little concerned about, but that I think we can work on. We also kept Indy Space Halpern. This kid is cracked. Ranked 1, his mentality, like, I want to talk about Space's mentality more so than anything, because you guys probably already know this guy is a player. He's a streamer. He's well known. His mentality is so alpha. This kid is so the definition of alpha. When he gets rank 1, he pushes past rank 1, and he's like, yeah. He tells me he doesn't want to win this season. He wants to dominate this season. He wants to make it not even close. He doesn't want any 3-2s. This kid is just alpha beyond belief, and I believe like he puts those high expectations on himself because he knows he can achieve them, and that he holds himself to this high standards because he truly believes that we as a team can do that. And I think last season he has to step. I talked to him, and we were both on the train that he had to be a little bit more of a leader. And I think he gained a lot of those leadership skills. And I'm hoping those will translate going into this season as well. That he is that kind of outside leader going into our team. And I mean, I think he's going to be such a big part of this team. He might not be S tier in every single meta for the off tank. I think his Sigma is exceptional and everything, and I think he's an exceptional player. His trend is so upwards. Last season, I think, was a blip on the radar because, I mean, it was a blip on the radar for everyone on Glads, to be honest, in terms of total performance. But I think we're going to see that S tier space. In a world where there's so many S tier tanks, I need him to break into that S tier tank and be solid with it. Not just solid, like definitively like top of that. And I know he has that expectation of himself as well. So for those worried about space, don't be. This kid's got a rock-solid mental. He will perform. He's always a match performer. This guy's great. And I'm a big believer in space. As a person and on this team, I'm a big believer in space. Okay, let's talk about our acquisitions. I think we just talked about space. Let's talk about Muse, and we got to talk about OG as well. I think Muse is a really natural fit into our team. Muse's English is quite good. Something people got to be wondering, like, okay, Fearless had his high highs on Monkey and Ryan, but he had holes on Orisa and maybe Ball. Where are Muse's holes? Muse actually doesn't have any holes on main tank. Hog might be if you consider Hog a main tank, but like we have different solutions around that, right? We could have different solutions around that, and hopefully Hog will never be as strong as he was that god awful playoffs patch. But Muse really has no holes. He is very flexible, and he prides himself on his flexibility, I think, to an extent. Maybe not prides, but he knows he's super flexible. I asked him which one his best off tank or best main tank was, and he's like, nothing. They're all really great. I don't know if he's at all really great, but that's me embellishing a little bit. Mew's really flexible. I see no meta holes with him. I see that he learns a lot. This guy's a grinder. His mental is really great. I mean, Face has a lot of experience with him, and he says Muse is a match performer. I believe him. He was on WGS, which always, like, I think stood above their player talent. So that's something I love from Muse is he's really smart about the game, and I think being smart about the game isn't enough. He is smart about the game and is willing to talk about the game to his team, and I think that's the important part, that he's going to get his team on the same page as him. We saw elements of this in the Valiant Ball, but honestly, that was a roll through for us. Despite no practice, that was a roll through for us. So I'm really happy with Muse as a pickup. I think he's young, really hungry talent, and I mean hungry. Like, this guy will play the game. He plays the game a lot. He wants to win really badly. I know that, and he wants to prove himself. He's gunning for Rookie of the Year for his personal achievement, and I think he can do that if our team is good. I know you need a good team to stand out on main tank, and I want to help him achieve that goal for sure. And I think Muse can do it as well. Whew, let's talk about our supports. All brand new supports. Shoe, Moth skewed. Okay. Ooh, let's crack my back a little. Shoe, Moth skewed. Shoe, I'm just going to go in order. Shu was always a standout, I think, on Guangzhou Charge. I think he was a big reason that they had a lot of success in the BAP Brig meta because his BAP was really exceptional. Shu's always been standout, though. His Ana is really great. People know. I think his Zen's really good, but maybe it's because his Ana and BAP are so good that maybe his Zen doesn't stand out, but I think his Zen is really good. Maybe not Violet level, but still really good player. I think he was a shining star on Guangzhou, and I think he will... he's under a better team, like truly and honestly. I think he's under a more talented team that will allow him to do a lot more things, I think. So I'm really excited about Shu. I think he's that S tier support. There's very few S tier supports. We're talking about Alarm, Violet. I don't know why I'm blanking here. Alarm, Violet, Izayaki. I'm sure I'm missing some, but like he's in that Jonak. Jonak is another one. Yeah, he's in that tier, and that tier is super great. You're not expecting like Bebe level of things. You're expecting higher things of Shu. I know Shu is maybe worried about the expectation, but I'm positive if he believes in himself, if he believes in our team, he will succeed. If his mental is strong, he will succeed. Moth, I can almost skim past Moth. You could just say two-time champ, and that's already enough. But let's speak a little bit about Moth. This guy's a rock. This guy's a competitor. This guy's just stone cold killer, I think. When the game's on, that Moth nervous meme is like, I mean, he's the last person from being nervous, I think, right? Like, it's actually funny. He's almost, I don't want to say robotic because that makes him seem not human, but sometimes he is not human in how he absorbs pressure and how he thinks about these situations. I know he's a big part of what Shock was. And again, I think Shock will still do great without him, just in a different way. But Moth is perfect, I think, for our team and what we need. We need that stability. We got a bunch of feeders on our team, people who go so aggro, and that's fine. I say feeders in a loving way. We got a bunch of aggro people on our team. And Moth is ready to pull them back, too. So, Moth, two-time champ, resilient. I mean, this guy's got a pedigree like no other. I could speak to hell about him, but I won't. He's two-time champ. That's all you need to say. Skewed. People are really bagging on the Skewed pickup. I love Skewed. People are asking why Skewed, right? Hopefully people understand what this role would entail. If it goes as expected, which is that Shu's the starter, I know Skewed has very high ambitions and wants to be a starter. He knows he has confidence in himself to be the best, and that's really great. But if things work out as as we might expect, this flex support role where he's maybe this in between, he's not going to be Moth, he's not going to be Shoot, he's going to be that thing in between. That's something that's really interesting for us. And I think his Zen is really great. I think his Brig is really great. And I want to talk about, and his BAP is really great too. I want to talk about why I think they're great, specifically for when we might put in double flex support too. He has super high awareness. We had B team scrims, and Jaru was on B team scrims, and he told me specifically, he was like, Skewed has such high awareness of what's going on. He always knows what's going on, and he's like, I always get healed. I mean, Jaru begging for heals as per usual, as the hit scan DPS players, they always just love the heals. Skewed is super aware, and I think that's super important because Brig requires high awareness. His Brig is super, super good. I don't think people know this about him. That's why we played him on Oasis. His 200 ping Brig, I know, was hard, but he still was really good on it on Oasis. He needed a little more practice on it, but his Brig looks really good. And that, along with, I think his flex supports are really good too. So if we ever go double flex support meta, if he becomes better than Shu, which I'm happy, if he's better than Shu, that's great. That means we have two S tier, so two S tier flex supports. I don't want to limit Skewed and what he can do and what he cannot do, but he clearly fills this hole that I imagine. So and people point to Oz not being a great team, yet 3 players are picked up. I'm not super high on Friday personally. But he got picked up. Checkmate, I think, is really good. Skewed, I think, was a standout on that team. But, that's team stuff. This guy, I mean, do you guys want to go to... Actually, we don't need to go to ladder. You just got to believe me. At the time of this vid, most of our players are top 10 in their role. I'm pretty sure Muse is Poto on... or I know Muse is Poto on Korea under tank, he's top 10. Skewed and Shu, they're right next to each other on ranked. I think Skewed is higher actually. Moth, we already know, top 10. Space, top 10 God. Mirror, Kevster, top 10. Birdring needs to play the fucking game in the off season, and I've been yelling at him about that. But I'm sure Birdring can get top 10 whenever. These guys are good. And this roster is really exciting because I feel like in past iterations of Gladiators, looking back realistically, we did not have a championship squad, roster-wise. The talent has always superseded any bit of coaching. You need the talent and you need the coaching, but talent always will supersede. Chengdu Hunters, let's say they get the best coach in the world, they will not be a championship-winning team, I don't think. Because our player quality isn't there, right? You could have the best teamwork team, and those teams will not stand up. You need both. That's why Shock is so good. I think in Season 1, people say that London's coaches were definitely hands-off, to say the least, that they let the players do a lot of the things on their own. They let them figure it out on their own, and that's where talent superseded, and it was clear Spitfire was the best team going into that season, but Krusty and Shock proved that you need great players. They have great players. I mean, we can go back to this list. They have great players. But you need great coaching. So looking at all these teams, you gotta be looking at the combo of great coaching and great team. Shock obviously has the pedigree for that. I told you I believe in myself, obviously, and I believe in this team. But my team has talent for sure. All these teams have talent to stand up on their own 2 legs, the player talent there. I don't know. There's going to be specific metas where, some teams will have more player talent than the other, and that will definitely happen. For example, Fearless gets on Monkey. I mean, to be fair, all these teams' Monkey players are really great, so maybe there won't be a diff there, but there will be some metas where we'll favor teams more, and that's going to be really exciting, but coaching can make that diff because I don't think it's a huge difference in any of these things. So these are the teams, just kind of talking about in conclusion. I'm glad I got to talk about Gladiators a little bit more in depth from my perspective, but talking about this whole top tier Gladiator, Shock, Justice, Fuel, these are interchangeable. These guys are scary. This is why I think the league's been more competitive as ever, is that I think there are lots of teams that can stand up to Shock now. And, man, am I excited for this tournament setting, too. We're going to see the top teams a lot more this season in high-pressure situations, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to see this, and also them versus us versus Asia as well. I mean, you talked about a great season for competitive play and high stakes. This season will have it for sure. And I think the teams have only gotten better, and hopefully it won't be like, oh, it's gonna be, Shock again. Like, even if Shock ends up winning, I think it's gonna be a harder path this year than it's ever been for them. I honestly think season 2 was easy peasy for them, and then season 3, I think they hit a perfect meta, but also that they had like uh they they had a bit of a challenge, but Fusion was not that challenge. Shanghai, I think, could have been that challenge, as well as Seoul, but like they hit a great meta for them. So Shock's never really been challenged as much as they will this year. So this top tier is going to be super, super, super exciting, I think. I'm obviously super high on my own team. I believe that we can win, or have that shot of winning, and I'm really excited. That's all I can really say. So that wraps up the Western Conference of OWL, the NA portion of OWL. Yeah, these 12 teams will be really exciting. Again, I think these teams have the highest expectations of them, and if they fall, these fans, these Reddit comments, the social media comments will be brutal on them. I already know what it's like. I've been on Gladiators, a popular team, a team where people expect a lot from us, and I can tell you that it hurts the team. It adds pressure to the teams, but champions will stand up through that pressure. And I'm really hoping we get to see a lot of championship quality teams this year. It's going to be a lot of fun going into this tournament format, like I said. Okay. I'm thinking about doing the Asia region as well. I think I'm going to have less in-depth knowledge about these teams. And honestly, I did 4 teams per video, and I kind of want to keep it that way instead of doing middle or bottom, middle, top. I was thinking about just doing 1 and 2, or more likely just not doing it. I'm getting busier as the season's getting closer, so considering not doing it as well. But we'll see if this one, if fans are clamoring for it or whatever. Maybe in free time I can do this. But yeah, let me know how you guys feel. This is the wrap up. If you haven't seen part 1, part 2. For the bottom and the middle, go see those if you want. You can go see Plat Chat's review of us, which is definitely more objective than anything I gave today. Certainly. Wow, we reached an hour of me just straight talking, no cut. That's insane. Anyways, I'm going to cut now before I make a big mess up. Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.